How's everyone doing? Yeah, all right. Everyone is having a lovely Sundance experience. Oh, I'm just checking out the sound here. Okay. Oh my gosh. It feels like it's feedbacking a little bit, but it could be me, right? It's okay. Thanks. All right. Whew. Well, welcome to our panel. This is a panel about the public investment renaissance, and we are going to be talking about new visions for publicly supported documentary film. How's that sound? All right. It is such a timely conversation, as we know. And first off, let's just have a huge round of applause for these amazing women here who have been working so hard throughout 2025 and have done amazing work with the organizations. Yeah. I just remember about a year ago, I was standing in a bathroom crying at the Constitution Center when we were learning about all the executive orders coming in. I used to work at the National Endowment for the Arts for 9 years as the Film and Media Arts Director, and we got those executive orders coming in, and we knew what was coming. And what is so interesting about that, like, really poignant moment is it just felt like it had always been on the verge of happening this far, but it never felt like it was going to be a reality. But what's so interesting is, as bad as last year was, there's a lot of hope and a lot of opportunity and a lot of freedom that comes with this new landscape that we have in 2026. So it's really exciting to be here and celebrating and being on this panel with all of you, because last year was a doozy. But this year, I just feel like this field is getting organized and really excited to work together in new ways. So
can we just clap it up for Jax first, just
yes,
because?
Yeah, it's been a lot. So do you each want to just go around and introduce yourselves? Because I did not do that, but I know you have films here for my TVS and let's just go around and introduce ourselves. And I'm Jax Saluka, by the way. I'm the interim director of Future Film Coalition right now, and also a Shorenstein Center doing a project around public media. And
I thought I was last. Okay. I have a mint in my mouth. I am sorry.
Oh my God.
That's okay. I feel like we're family in here. It's tight. I'm Carrie Lozano. I am CEO and president of ITVS. I'm also a filmmaker by background and a Sundance alum and IDA alum, and so it's really wonderful to be here. And thank you to all of you. It's really great to be here talking about the future.
Yes, Carrie. I'm Paula Smith-Aragoni. I'm the executive director at Bayvac Media, and I'm also recently voted on to be the vice president of the Roxy in San Francisco. Very excited. So happy to be here. I'll pass it. Erica.
Hi, I'm Erica Dilday. I am the executive director of American Documentary and the executive producer, along with Chris White, who's here, right there, of POV, America Reframed, and POV Shorts. And I am also working on a film on the period between the end of the Civil War and the Great Migration, which has so many parallels to what we're going through now that it's a little bit scary. And again, I'm excited to be here and just excited by all of the work that everyone is doing. And I feel like we are a microcosm of Minneapolis and that we're just going to keep going.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. My name's Maya Chupkov. I'm here representing California Common Cause and Proud Stutter. And I'm also a filmmaker working on a documentary on the intersection of stuttering, race, and the history in the Deep South. And this idea of a panel came to me, and to just see us all here now, I'm just so happy. And I look up to each and every one of these women up here, so I just feel really excited to be here.
We are so excited to have you, and Maya put so much work into organizing this panel, and we recently met at Hot Springs Film Festival, courtesy of Don Young at CAM. And that was just so amazing because one of the things that where Maya and I hit it off about was talking about the documentary ecosystem and then also what's happening in the microcosm of local news. And just thinking about how we can work together and bring these different parts of the fields together between documentary and journalism and independent film. And, for many of us inside the system, and I'm sure you felt this way, 2025, that crisis felt like a long time in the making. And it feels different now that we're kind of outside of what last year was. And people are thinking a little bit more deeply and rethinking what the future could be. So I guess one of the questions I had for you all is what are you thinking about in this moment in terms of a reset for what public investment means, what public media means, how you're working within it? So I'll just open that up to you all.
You're looking at me. I'll start. For us, BAVAC is, we are fundamentally a training organization and also artist development organization. And for us, a lot of the artists that we've supported through our documentary filmmaker program, they're first-time filmmakers, and many of them end up on public media. They have in the past. And since, for the short term at least, that's shifting, we feel like, we really need to make a lot of pivots in our training. So that's a lot of what we're thinking about is like, how can we in the short term make sure that the filmmakers who are getting close to the finish line, they're still going to have a great ending. And so how can we help with more DIY strategies, more grassroots, thinking about partnerships to really support them right now. And then I think longer term, we do a lot of field building at BAVAC. Tux and I and our teams, we were co-facilitating the Indie Media Arts Group that a lot of you are part of, so thank you. And I think continuing to try to create more spaces like this for advocacy, shared knowledge, really thinking about strategy. So, really thinking more about that. We do that in the Bay Area as well through the Bay Area Media Maker Summit. We're also very proud members of the 9th Street Independent Film Center. That's also really important to us. So doing more of that, as well as partnering with industry and government. That's a big part of what we do, and I think all of us can do more of that. And then I think longer term, we're also thinking about technology. We're also a very tech-focused organization. And I think in the last years, honestly, if I'm just being critical of ourselves, we have just kind of gotten very comfortable being in a documentary feature space, and we need to be more innovative. That's at our roots, and so that's something we're really thinking about. We're thinking about how can we be positive in all of the AI disruption? How can we think about filmmakers having agency, having opportunities for monetization? So those are things that we're thinking about in the reset.
I would say our biggest concern is how do we get the films that excellent filmmakers are making out to the public without fear? And I'd say that sort of sums up what we want to do. We're looking at how do we aggregate and distribute films in different ways? How do we make sure that we can put the films out that we've curated because we believe in the film, not because we're confident that, it won't get us into any trouble? And I think that's the most important thing for us. We're working on creating more opportunities to do that, on picking up some of the strands that have gone dormant in documentary film, like America Reframed, Doc World, Local USA, but how do we provide a space for films and filmmakers to reach the audiences that they should reach via some sort of public access, and also do the engagement and impact work that really makes the films not just be seen but be used.
Mm-hmm. Maya's looking at me. So we, just to say, ITVS is a system player, so we work with all the strands within public media that serve independence. Of course, we present Independent Lens, and during this last year, we lost 86% of our funding. And so we should not be here, but we are, and that's thanks to so many of you in this room, to so many supporters, and also our firm commitment to our congressional mandate. which is to bring bold and diverse content to public media. We have not wavered from that. We have not changed anything. We're doing what we've always done, but we are doing things differently. And to the credit of the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, before they were defunded, we had already started to talk to them about doing things differently, doing things in the social space, working with creators, thinking differently about how many features we serve, not because of public media, but because the whole infrastructure is struggling. And what we can see when you're at ITVS is you can see the funding gaps. And you can see the times that they close, the times that they don't, what filmmakers are going through, because we're a co-producer. And so we started making decisions really early on to really start to think about, we have to kind of look at this moment differently. And then, of course, the defunding happened. So we just continued to carry on. So we launched a creator lab this year. It is the youngest, most diverse pool of applicants ITVS has ever had. And so where does it land? What is that content going to look like? We are going through those applications right now. But we're really happy about it because 90% of the applicants have never had any interaction with ITVS before. So we want to talk to people in their communities who are telling stories from the ground up. We're really excited about that. We have reimagined our development fund, so we're still funding films, but we have to be honest about the state of the industry, where audiences are accessing films, and we wanted to take care of the 40 feature films in our pipeline, which we are able to do, also thanks to the Corporation for Public Broadcasting in its wind down. So we are here, we are fighting to stay here. We believe in the mission, and we believe that right now we reach 33 million Americans each year with ITVS films, and we are unwilling, we don't want to let go of that audience. It has enormous impact, and many of our PBS colleagues are here. And so we're fighting for that, and at the same time, we want to be champions to all the amazing ideas that are coming forward. It's not one idea that is going to solve our issues, it is many. And so we want to be here to help, but we also want to be laser focused on reaching Americans as we're created to do by many people who are actually in this room. So I'll stop there.
You also had a great article that came out yesterday or this morning in Real Screen. Do you want to plug that real quick? Because I loved everything in there.
Sure. Some people don't realize that we have been putting films with PBS on YouTube for the last few years. We've released 20 films. And so we've learned a lot about audience engagement, what works, what doesn't, what are the skills you need, what are the films that land. I'm looking at Marsha. We Want the Funk reached millions of Americans on all streaming platforms across public media. And so, we are having to say, like, okay, where are audiences and what are they? And not to say we're serving an algorithm, that's not what we do, but to be really clear that, and we all do it, we all know it, right? We know where we get our media and our content. And so to be really clear that we need to be thinking audience first in a lot of ways. But at the same time, still holding to bringing the artistic, important, impactful, community-driven work that we always have. So it's a different moment, and I think the silver lining of what's happened is it's forcing us to innovate. We have to do it. We don't have a choice. And so it accelerated the need to just make some changes and to just think differently about what we do, but not to walk away from who we are.
Yeah, that's a good segue to you, Maya.
Yeah, so I am approaching this work with kind of multiple hats. So I'm a first-time featured documentary filmmaker, working on my first film. And also with Common Cause, I'm really looking at things from a 360 view and trying to figure out where Common Cause can add and be additive to the gaps. And as I'm in a lot of filmmaker spaces, documentary filmmaker spaces, I think I went to like 8 film festivals last year. And one of the things I see over and over again that is a big challenge is, in addition to funding, which I'm not going to get into, but is distribution and audience building. And so I think when I see this as, how can Common Cause help out is, really help with how can we be exhibition partners? How can we be impact partners? How can we help filmmakers reach their target audiences and find alignment? Because Common Cause, we have chapters all over the country, and we have boots on the ground. We have organizers across the country that, so I'm really trying to build, not only advocacy around public interest media, but also how can we use as an organization public interest documentaries as a tool for organizing and bringing people together and bridging so many of the divides that are present. And documentaries can be such a great space for healing together, for merging the most unlikely communities and have them see the humanity in each other. And so I'm really taking both those roles into this year. One of my dreams for 2027, which I'm going to work my butt off to achieve for 2027, is to build towards working with like one film or two and really find alignment in a film and really use common causes infrastructure to really partner with a filmmaker to really get their film out there. So, yeah.
That's great. I love that. You're in the right room for that. Through the Shorenstein research that I'm doing right now, which is around a really small insignificant thing, it's really thinking about how do we build a new blueprint for public media. And it just is a wormhole of so many things, right? It's like you're just pulling out so many pieces of a system, and it's like, have you ever had a box of cables? And you pull it out after 10 years, and you're like, I didn't even move this box, but somehow it's just everything's stuck together, and it's so messy, and you can't pull one cord without pulling them all out. So that's kind of what's been happening with the blueprint for me, and it's something that I really want to be working with all of you and all of you in this room. I just posted the first blog post on the Shorenstein Center's website last week, and there's an invitation to engage, and every post will go over a different area of the blueprint, and then have an invitation to engage. And don't need that, it's fine. We're already past the first page. And it's thinking about the infrastructure and all these new partnerships and the co-creation aspects. And Sanjay Jolly and Ellen Goodman are two people in the media scholar policy world. And they had proposed this amazing thing in 2019 around having a full stack approach to public media. And that was around rebranding the Corporation for Public Broadcast as the Corporation for Public Media. And then also, when the Carnegie Commission had developed that program for action, what's interesting in there is it does look at all of the pieces on the ground, what existed, and at that point they were really just looking at stations, but it was looking at interconnectedness. And I feel like right now is a really nice time to think about how do we all look at how places like BAVAC and AMDOC and ITVS and Common Cause and these different entities and local stations, how do we all think about how a new infrastructure could coexist without it being like so nationalized and formal. And so I just wanted to use that as a segue of thinking about structures and localism and how that relates to your work right now.
Yeah, I can talk a little bit about that. One of the things that I think is important for us to remember is that, and I have spent a lot of time reading the Carnegie Commission report, and it was a response to the fact that there was so much tumult within the country and that certain groups weren't feeling represented, weren't getting the opportunity to share their ideas, to share their voices, and that as a nation, we had to correct that. And that hasn't changed at all. And I think one of the things that we have to do is, as we look at rebuilding this, it's a service to the public. If we are doing public broadcasting, we have to serve the entire public, not pieces of it, but the entire public. And we have been moving further and further away from doing that. If you look at what the Carnegie Commission did, it was an attempt to even the playing field about who got to speak, who got to be heard, and who was considered important. And I feel like we're moving a little bit away from that, not within our public broadcasting, say PBS or even NPR, but within how we are being brainwashed into looking at what the importance of public media is. And I want to make sure that, we keep that front and center. It's to represent our public. It's not to represent whoever's in power at the moment.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, I can jump in too. So BAVAC also, some people don't know this, but we we run the public access television community media for the city of San Francisco. And I'm so appreciative of you doing the research and looking at history, because there was so much progressive action happening in the 70s and early 80s that I think that we can learn from and try to build on. And also the community media movement is so much a part of that. And, you know, while there have been several lawsuits to try to get streamers to pay a licensing fee similar to what has happened with cable broadcasting, and that hasn't gone forward yet. I know that I haven't been involved in that advocacy, and maybe a lot of us in the room haven't. That feels like a space that we should all be activated. It shouldn't just be a little municipality that wants to claw back some revenue for the city, you know, because of a like a kind of a city kind of thing. But like, we should be fighting for that as well as a public commons. So I just want to say I think there's so much to learn that we can try to advance just from the history and building on the resources that we already have.
And I'll just jump in because we're talking about like models, right? And like examples of what's out there. So I've been organizing in California for 4.5 years, the local journalism ecosystem, and I've been incubating a coalition in San Francisco, which I've been running for 4 years. And it really started with all of us just self-organizing and meeting monthly. And that has turned into, we did a community information needs assessment where we did focus groups in over 7 languages and really trying to understand how are our communities, where are they consuming media and how, and what is missing, what do they want to see? And then we also commissioned a report from the Board of Supervisors to help us create a roadmap of like where the system's at and where we can go. And so we took those 2 pieces of research and worked on a policy plan. And we actually passed a resolution in San Francisco urging city departments to spend at least 50% of their advertising in San Francisco. So that is more money going into local journalists in San Francisco. And there's so many models we can borrow from local journalism. We're doing a California Civic Media Fund, which is launching this year. We're doing a San Francisco version. There's so many models. I do want to call out, though, a model from Maine. Is anyone familiar with the Recovery in Maine program? Anyone? Okay, so that is a program that's in the state budget. And that program started with one impact campaign on a film about the opioid crisis. And what made it work is they invited lawmakers into the conversations. They invited leaders of the city agencies, of the hospitals. And the lawmakers they were in the room seeing the impact that these films were having. And that made them get on board with actually funding the Recovery in Maine program that is locked into the state budget through a lot of their healthcare initiatives. So there's just so many different ways we can work with cities, states, regions to start really investing in public interest media. And now they even co-produced documentaries too. So.
That's amazing. Those are the types of things that really give us hope, right? The local and the regional organizing is really, I think, where we can be most effective right now. Obviously, the long-term picture still is so important, but these are the incremental ways that we can all really funnel some of our angst from last year and organize, right? And that's what Future Film Coalition will be doing too. So if anyone has questions about that, check out futurefilmcoalition.org. Carrie, do you want to add to this too about the local component?
Sure. I mean, ITVS has long had an on-the-ground engagement program working with stations and NGOs in different states. Last year, as we realized the political moment we're in, the polarization, the threats, we decided that we wouldn't cap it. You know, we have a tiny team, an incredible team that runs this program. And so we ended up having screenings and conversations in 49 states for the first time, and largely working with public libraries but also many stations and then other community organizations. And so this year we're doing the same thing. I don't know that we can sustain that forever, or we don't have a cap because it is literally hundreds of partners. But last year we had a film about the history of the public libraries, Free for All, which if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend. You will learn so much about the history of the public libraries, which has all kinds of amazing social justice intersections. And this year we have the film Librarians, which is about librarians on the front lines of book banning. And so the libraries have become this incredible partner. And someone had mentioned at some other conversation I was in about how the libraries had to reimagine their business model over the last couple of decades, right? There was a moment where everybody thought public libraries were obsolete, and suddenly now they're these really diverse community centers that do so many different things within their communities, whether it's screenings and events and classes and all sorts of things that they do. It's fascinating. So we're really committed to that program. And to doing as much of it as we can, and to really keeping those partnerships strong. The stations use the films in a variety of ways. They have conversations, they had dance parties last year, they fundraise. So they really have the ability to use the content in ways that are best for their community. But then what we offer is accessibility training. Last year, for the first time, we did social media training, because some stations are tiny. People don't realize that, but some stations are very, very small. And so it's been a really joyful and wonderful and impactful way for us to make sure that we are also having other types of community engagement that don't rely on broadcasts or don't rely on YouTube, but really bring people into the work in an entirely different way. So we will continue doing that work, and I think the Creator Lab initiative is a similar idea of like, how do we find people in community? They're the experts of their communities. They're the experts of what's going on in their hometowns. And so how do we bring them into the system and also nationalize, elevate those stories nationally?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I just wanted to mention some of the communities that we're working with that I think are often forgotten. We've been doing a lot of work with the incarcerated community, and Asad Mohammed, who's in the back there, has been working with prison libraries and a lot of different systems within our impact and engagement program. And one of the things that we are finding is there are so many communities still that even in the height of us being able to say the letters D, E, and I without getting beaten up, that we still weren't looking at these communities, and that we have to look at the communities that are more difficult to address. And I think that's what we're starting to do. And, our team has been doing a great job with that, because one of the things that we've realized is that we do a lot of on-the-ground screenings. We do a lot of interaction. We've got 14,000 community groups in our community network, but that we also have to go for the ones that are not as easy to find, the ones that aren't as easy to work with. Different disability communities where some of the things that we need to do, we didn't even know needed to be done before. And so I think a lot of the work that we're looking at doing right now is bringing those communities that were a little harder to reach. I like to think of them as their own local communities, because everybody likes to talk about local, but a lot of the things that we're seeing with the incarcerated communities, whether it's at Folsom or at San Quentin, are very similar, and we need to make sure that we're opening people's eyes and also providing services to these communities who really are in a desert of information and access. And they also prove just how important the content that we do is to them. I mean, at the San Quentin Film Festival, I talked to people of every age, shape, size, ethnicity, level of education, who knew Independent Lens, who knew America Reframed, who knew POV, and could break down their different favorite parts. People want the content. Yeah. They are interested in the content. We just have to make sure that we find a way to get it to them. And there didn't seem to be an age limit or an ethnicity or anything. And they want to engage with this content. And so I think pushing our boundaries to make sure that we do not just, what seems to be mission-oriented, but what is difficult is important as we go forward.
Yeah. Is that connecting? And that's the thing. It's like you're connecting communities through all. Yeah, let's do the round of applause. This work, the work that you're all doing and the stories that you're representing are representing public stories, and it's still so angering to me that there is a percentage of people that think that it does not represent the public interest. So how are you all grappling with how do we work around that this year? Because that's top of mind right now.
I'll start again. I mean, our VP for External Affairs, Cecilia Mejia, is here as well. And one of the things that we are trying to do is really launch a campaign to show what public is, who public is, what people are interested in within the public. And one of the things that I think we all have to do is we all have different ideas of how to do things, but we've got to work together. There's strength in numbers, and it's much easier to not have a movement if everybody's doing their own little thing. And one of the things that we've been working at doing is trying to, bring everybody into the same tent at the same time to really get the word out, to bring in the films that we need to bring in, to get out to the people who we need to reach. And, what I love about this community is everybody works so hard. What I hate about this problem is that it's very difficult for us to figure out an answer. And to be honest, for those of us who have worked with public media for decades, we've been holding our breath every 4 to 8 years, hoping that what just happened wouldn't happen. And so now it's kind of on us to, take this moment and do something with it, because, honestly, we shouldn't be surprised. This has, been foretold for a long time, and we just kept going, whew. Well, we can't do that anymore, but I think we can only do it if we all work together. It's not about a solution here or there. It's about, a comprehensive solution to really serve our audiences and filmmakers.
I'd love to make a plug for also the makers, working with the organizations in your community who are like a BAVAC, who are supporting young people or people at different stages of their life to be makers themselves. And to Erica's point, folks who are not maybe coming through a university program, they're not coming through formal education, they're coming through other life experiences, and there are a lot of challenges sometimes with that. Trying to scaffold supportive services, trying to scaffold, a whole bunch of other things to make that possible so somebody can work and still get training and become a maker. That's another way that we're building a love for this craft and this field and content, creation and storytelling. And it's hard, but I think it's a really important endeavor that we should all be supporting too.
Yeah, and as a first-time filmmaker, I'm like, it's a struggle right now. And but instead of like wallowing in that, I'm like, okay, I'm an organizer. How can I move kind of beyond myself to really support the entire ecosystem? Because, I'm not the only one. Like, I meet filmmakers every day who are struggling. Like, I met the director of 2,000 meters to Andreevka and 20 days in Mariupol, and I'm like, even he's working on a film right now that he can't even get funded. And I'm like, if an Oscar winner can't even, like, what? So it's really, I'm really like trying to, how can I use my skills to really help the ecosystem? And we need to organize now, because I'm in spaces where they're planning to pass a digital ads tax in California. Okay, this is like, you hear it here first. I'm probably not supposed to say anything because it's a local journalism thing, but we need to self-organize as a documentary field to get in on that, because that is coming. And if we don't organize and unify our industry, we are going to get cut out of that huge. That's going to bring so much money to California, and it's not just coming to California. Like, it is going to be coming everywhere. And documentary, we need to unite on the state level so we can get into that, because we're going to get cut out so we need to start right after this panel to organize.
Yes.
There's a sign-up sheet.
You're my new spirit animal, because that's exactly so that's part of the blueprint thing too, is looking at the digital and streaming ad revenue. And in Maine, they just did one, but it was just to fill the bottom line of their budget. it wasn't getting rerouted anywhere, but I think of places that, have declining PEG fees for their their community access centers. So journalism has been really good about advocating for itself and getting into these conversations. And this is where Future Film comes in, because we really will be helping with the field and bringing together this messaging and connecting with policymakers, so that way we can work in this space, and it's so amazing. So that's why I'm so glad to have met Maya. Thank you, Don, because all of this stuff it can be ours too, and we just need to work together and be open to it and be really not blindly optimistic, but focusing our energy in that spot where we can start telling the field what we need for policy protections, because we have not had people advocating for this field in this space. The independent film field needs a special space, and there were people advocating for that decades ago heavily, and we kind of have been fragmented in different ways. So now is the time to come back together, and I'm just so excited for this year.
Can I say something about the journalism piece of it, which is they're 15 years ahead of us in terms of a total collapse. So it's not like they didn't go through a thing. They went through kind of what we're going through, and unfortunately I was there for that too. And so it's not my first crisis, but what is true is that journalism is a radically different way of working now than it did 20 years ago, because it was forced to. Did the business model that had made it so prosperous and vital continue? No, it didn't. A lot of things did not survive. As we know, there are information deserts. People don't like that term, but it's kind of what it is. There's a lack of information, right, in certain communities, which public media does still access. And they have had to, and then there's, when we started having this journalism conversation, there were just a few nonprofit newsrooms, and now there are hundreds and hundreds of nonprofit newsrooms. So 15 years of radical shift, and some of them are thriving, but we know that that's still a challenge, which is where this money comes in. So I just say that as both a note of optimism, but also a recognition that we are in, to me, I personally feel like we are in that disruptive moment that journalism has seen, that the music industry saw some time ago. And so we will come out the other side looking quite different. But we are still necessary. And the thing that we bring that we sometimes forget to talk about is joy and hope and culture and connection in a way that other forms don't penetrate quite as powerfully, which is also why we're often a target.
And if we kind of scale back, yes, please. I love this applause.
By the way, this is my mom right here. So
I love you, Maya's mom. You raised an awesome daughter. Yes.
And there are 2 seats here. If somebody needs to sit down, please take them.
If we scale out and think about music and what happened with journalism, and these are our allies as well, right? And so this is kind of something that's been top of mind, is we've kind of all been not pitted against each other at all, but we're siloed between talking about those core root issues that are affecting all of us: the digital disruption, all of the things, media consolidation. And that brings me to, I just have this handy pocket here just filled with these, here. Let's see. Yeah, let me see if these are my business cards. You don't want, Sandy has them. Sandy will pass them around. So we just launched this campaign that is against media consolidation that can be used for many things, not just the pending merger, but we're collecting evidence and stories of how independent filmmakers have been affected by media consolidation. And also we're collecting stories from people who love independent film, who might have a hard time finding these stories on streaming platforms. And so the more evidence we can collect, we can connect that to antitrust regulators, people who are doing the merger review, so that way they understand this field better, so they can make better policy protections. Because as Maya pointed out, policymakers actually do like independent film, and when they're thinking about the impact, it's
blue and red policymakers,
Yes.
by the way, and they may not admit it, but behind closed doors, they know the films and they advocate for them, and sometimes they'll even speak up on behalf of them. So this is, they definitely see the value.
Yeah.
Not everybody, obviously.
And I also think, too, it's important to realize, as building on Carrie's point, that, documentary film public media also does a lot for the arts. We are an art. We support the arts. And, we've seen this change in consolidation. Look at book publishing and how different it was than, when you were younger. Look at television shows and the limited series and the things that are on streamers right now. This evolution was inevitable. And the question is now how we handle it and how we take it forward and how we use it to the best of our ability to support the makers and to support the audiences. So I don't want to spend too much time mourning the fact that we have to change. I did that. I think we all did that. My dad used to say, "You've got 5 minutes to cry." The 5 minutes are up, and I think it's up to us to figure out, how we grab this moment and what we come up with next.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Paula, we've talked about this too, what Erica just mentioned about the arts, like documentary, media arts, and it's somehow been siloed by the cultural arts advocacy side too. Do you want to talk a little about that?
Yeah, I just think, as we were trying to pull together all types of different media organizations around the country, and there are many, from youth serving to community media to experimental to workforce development to artist development. There are just so many different factions, and a lot of us aren't speaking to each other very often. And, there's a lot more that we can do to be a much more aligned ecosystem. So I think that's really where we want to go. I just want to shout out something that has been exciting for me this morning. It just being in conversations with some of the people in this room around just technology. I have found that I've been a little bit anxious. I want to say, speaking about these last months and the 5 minutes crying, getting that out of our system. In the Bay Area, the fear of AI has been very overwhelming. I'm sure in lots of parts of the country. But listening to some of the people that in this conversation and in earlier today around how we can have power in our work and doing, nonfiction storytelling in other forms, but using technology really to advance and to move us forward, and so that we can compete. We can be a standalone platform if we recreate something like a CPB, but also how do we kind of also infiltrate other, platforms. So to Carrie's point, we can really be audience first so that we are really moving forward our values-centered storytelling. I think that I'm really excited about some of those innovations that are happening in our field.
We have 15 minutes left in this panel. Is there anything that you haven't gotten to say that you'd like to talk about?
Or questions or comments from people?
That would be amazing. I only made that face because I had a Red Bull.
Oh, yes. To say. But one thing that we've been working on at American Documentary is how we look at expanding the idea of public media, not putting the onus just on PBS or our current systems, and how we create opportunities to show more films, more content, and especially also short form content, similar to what ITVS is starting to bring in now. If you have ideas, if you want to help us think about it, we would love to hear from you. We started an email, docpublic@amdoc.org, and really just want to widen the tent on ideas and how we look at doing things in the future, because we have to do it as an industry and we have to do it together. So I just wanted to put that plug out there. We're open to hearing ideas and trying to organize anything that we can with all of our partners to move this forward.
Yeah.
Earlier you mentioned the idea, it's bewildering, the fact that we need to advocate for why public media is an asset to the public. And I would love to hear, what are your pitches? How do you make that case so that we can all be better advocates for that? You know what I mean? Pitch it to me.
Yeah. It's really depending on the audience. You really just need to know your audience super, super well and meet them where they're at. And so whenever I curate an event or a community event, I focus so much on like the audience, what I want them to feel, who I want to bring together, and then I literally message it directly to them and work with people who I want to be there to like. So it's really you really have to like meet people where they're at, and communities aren't a monolith. Like you really have to work really close with organizers, people on the ground, and people whose stories are kind of at the forefront. But that's just, yeah.
Communities aren't a monolith. I love that. And, you know, I always just throw my dad under the bus, but he voted for Trump. And, you know, a lot of people in my family did. I grew up on the South Shore. My dad was, you know, a tile man, and my mom's partner, you know, fisherman. I grew up tiling and fishing, right? So it's a very different type of a spot. Everything that I've done at the Shore and Science Center right now, I run it by my dad. And it's so interesting because remember when the White House did the executive, remember this? When the White House did the executive order against not subsidizing biased media, my dad was like, yeah, it shouldn't have been subsidized. And I'm like, well, did you know, though, that most of the work that I was doing at Squeaky Wheel when I was working in Buffalo at the Film and Media Arts Center supported this type of work? Oh, I didn't know that. Did you know that also, like, it's not just PBS and NPR, there's all of these local documentaries. You remember this documentary? I liked that. Okay, so this is public media. It's like, this is the most confusing ecosystem to unpack. And so I think once you start finding the pieces that are meaningful to the people, then that's their public media systems, and then they want to feed into that, right? For some people, it might just be something as simple as streaming governmental town halls. My dad got really worked up about this. He was like, they had this town hearing. I don't even know where I can stream it. It was too full, couldn't get in there. They're making decisions behind closed doors. And I was like, well, before this would have been your peg station. And he's like, and so it's interesting. He was like, do you think that a new public media could have something like that? And I was like, yes, Dad, I think it could. And so these are the conversations we need to have, because then it's something for everyone, right? One thing's not going to fit everyone. So,
yeah,
exactly.
That's right. Finding the stories. I mean, we did a couple of Capitol Hill screenings last year, and we did a film about Alzheimer's, my Alzheimer's through a Matter of Mind series, and Susan Collins came, and this is in the middle of all this stuff, you know, and she talked for 15 minutes about her Alzheimer's legislation, and I think it's, you know, what we kept saying is there is something for everyone, but then we would find, like, what is that thing for you? And we'd go into the offices and say, like, did you know we made this film, and this is part of your community, and this is how we elevated this, and so I think that kind of a bespoke, and I love your cord analogy, because I'm pretty new still to public media. I'm like, oh yeah, it is hard to explain, but I think finding those stories that really resonate with a very specific audience, there is something for everyone, but sometimes you have to find it, and then there are things that break through and everybody loves. The number of times that I've been out in the world and talking to people, veterans, you know, senior citizens, Latinos, African Americans, and I'll say, what's your favorite documentary? And they'll always say, this has happened several times. I love Ken Burns, but you know what? I loved I'm Not Your Negro. So many people, and I've been like, that's a public media film. That would not have existed were it not for public media, and we just have to keep telling the story. We have to keep telling the story.
Yeah. You have a question?
I really do. Don't freak out, Maya. I think I represent the public because I'm not a filmmaker, have nothing to do with entertainment, although I'm born and raised in LA. I didn't really even know what this panel was, but other than my daughter said she's speaking, I didn't know she was. So I'm a good public, perception, and amazed by all of you. Is there a way that just this panel, I think it's being recorded, can get out there? Because I've learned so much, and what Erica reiterated, how this can be used, documentaries, from anything from disability, education. Can this be shown somewhere? Because just to the public, it opens my eyes about all the representation that could be made.
I mean, that would be amazing, right? There should just be a public media tour where we just go over all the things. Because even, what's amazing that I love about NDoc and ITVS is you make educational guides for teachers. And there's all this stuff that happens that people don't think of as public media, but is part of the system. And I love that idea. Let's go on the road together. I would love nothing more than this.
Yeah, I feel good.
All right, let's get this.
Can we sing too?
Yes! Oh my gosh, yes.
You can take mine.
I hate to be the wrench, but part of the reason that people don't associate our work with public media is that public media has treated us as a best kept secret in some scenarios, and in others as a liability, right? When they're navigating political pressures and the things and the like. And so that's part of the reason. So I think when we talk about public media renaissance, there also needs to be a bit of pressure, right? Put on public media, sort of PBS National, the leadership of local stations across the country, reminders of what their mandate and mission is and how we're a part of that. So as we're in renaissance mode, let's also say, right, like there are things that need to be tweaked and fixed within public media. And I think leadership, diversifying the leadership of the public media system in all regards, right, not just racially and ethnically, but age-wise, a lot of different ways. I think that has to be part of the renaissance, so that we're, sort of independent film isn't doing all this heavy lifting that will then land on deaf ears.
Yep, agree. And, that is hardly a wrench because, and what I've noticed that the more we talk about public media, public broadcast, we're thinking about it in different ways too. Because when we're thinking about public media, I think we're thinking about what it's going to be like when it is recreated with all of these very complex things under consideration and revived. So it's not the same system, but it's a new and expanded system that can live more close and true to its origins. And that, there's a lot of good stuff from the 70s about what the principles could be. And I think now it's like that time of just going back there and like really taking a good look, because everything that was kind of laid out there early on kind of got eroded and narrower and safer because it's in a protective mode. But now I think it's a time where we can come out and yeah.
Yeah, if you look at shows like Say Brother from the 70s, which you can find streaming now, it is amazing to see what the Carnegie Commission gave birth to in terms of shows that really did start to bring viewpoints that were treated as lesser to the forefront. And that is the origin of public media. And we have to get back there.
There was also experimental film too, like Nam June Paik, and all of this crazy like experimental signal processing. There were, in the program for action, it calls out artists, educators, and so that's the other thing too. It's where's the weird stuff? Let's get that back too. I know we still have it, but
I also just want to say super quick, I just think also we have to really commit to being a more efficient system. I just feel like, all of us in this room, we represent, different parts of this ecosystem. And yet, I'm going to just say for, emerging filmmakers, first-time filmmaker, incredibly hard to navigate and know how to get your film, get your completion funds, get onto public media. I just think we can do better in that as well. In as far as, communicating more collaboration, since we also have, limited funding. I think we have some duplications, and I think we can do a better job. I was in a session this morning, and Vince, you were just talking about how we need to learn more from all of this consolidation, BS that's been happening on the commercial side of the industry, but they've been doing some things right in the sense that they have internal systems and infrastructure that is effective. And our side, we have independence and we have lots of us, but we're also not really working together really efficiently. And so I just think that's a big one for us.
But they have venture capital.
They have venture capital.
Yeah, seriously though, they have venture capital. And so one of the things that is true when it comes to infrastructure, and I think Seth is here, said it this morning too, You know, if you look at what did NASA invest in, right? Like some of the infrastructure, forget about the philosophical things, that's important, but like the infrastructure, that was our investment, that was our venture capital. And so where is that going to come from?
Yeah.
Is that philanthropy? Is there a revenue model? Are we going to get money from the platforms? But I mean, so yes, I agree, but like they've got billions of dollars and their mission is to make money.
Come back to this room tomorrow at this time.
Okay.
Let's continue this discussion.
Okay.
I love it. Yes, and also, like, who in this room now wants to do some advocacy work, policy education to bring this money into this
Maya's
system?
mom.
Right? Like,
Maya's mom is our new mascot.
yes, this is so amazing. And you know, hardware stores went through this too, right? With Lowe's and Home Depot, right? That's why Ace Hardware, these are like, Ace Hardwares are locally owned. They're like, it's like a co-op structure almost. So it's like, what would it look like if we also reorganized ourselves and thought about how do many independents exist under one umbrella together as one? And so I think these are all the different things of like, what does it mean to shift and move things around and think about what assets we have? Dominic, yes? Oh, I thought you were like, oh, do you want to?
It was going to be after you finished speaking. No, I'm sorry, Jax. I just wanted to say, because we're working together, you know, we're on so much of it seems to be about how to get organized. And as everyone's saying, there's so many of us, small, medium-sized, and it doesn't seem to be a lot of divergence in what we're trying to achieve. The key to it seems to be the organization. And so, you know, shout out to Future Film Coalition. I'm Dominic, I'm the director of IDA. I'm an Organized for Future Film Coalition because it's a coalition, right? That's the idea. We're an association. And I think so much of this now is just really pragmatic, and it's kind of the design of collaborations and partnerships somehow. Because I want to talk to you about the digital ad thing. We have thousands of members just in California, you know, that we could mobilize for this. We're sending out the media consolidation, the thing you all have. Yeah, we only thought of it like a week ago. So working on that, we're sending that out to our members today to try and surface stories for how media consolidation affects them. So I want to say, I think we're all so much on the same page, and so much of this is about just getting organized and using the complementary resources that we all have to get this done.
Well, this has been great. Any last?
I just want to say one more thing. As just putting my filmmaker hat on, I think equipping filmmakers with business skills is so important, because I'm about to look at my first contract, and the best advice a filmmaker ever gave me was to get a pro bono attorney. And I literally went to a law offices in San Francisco, knocked on their doors, and found one. Oh, wow. And so, and honestly, now I have someone that is going to be have my back, and like, so I think we also need to make sure filmmakers know what they're getting into and having more of a business mindset.
Great point. So I think is it Video Consortium that does the free legal consultation? Did somebody see? Mm-hmm. Yes? Vince. Oh,
I think so.
yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't speak for them.
Okay. Yeah. So these are the things, though. It's like, how do we piece together? Because we know that there's resources, right? But just, it's like there's a lot of like crevasses. Is that how you say it? Is it crevice or crevasse?
Depends on how it's spelled.
There's a lot of crevasses and crevices that you can fall into. And so that's why it's like, where's the infrastructure top part that can help uplift everything that's happening at the grassroots level? So many things. Anything else before we close up? Any last questions? One last,
No, I think something I'm working on, I'm trying to build like a bank of pro bono legal hours that documentary filmmakers get access. Like a fund, but a fund of hours. I think it's possible.
Can I just do want to just give a quick ad for our panel tomorrow, because there are local stations that are really killing it. And we've got 3 of them coming in tomorrow. So you don't have to convince all the stations. Chris Hastings at WXXI, he owns a theater. The station owns a theater. There are great stories. We're going to tell a few of them, and if you have stories, bring them too. 3 o'clock tomorrow in this room.
All right. Thank you, Vince. All right. Well, this has been so amazing. I hope you're all hyped up.
Thank you, Jax.
Yeah, thank you. This is
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.